Copp's Hill Battery. Copp's Hill is one of the tallest hills in Boston and the highest point in Boston's North End. The hill was fortified during the siege of Boston, partly to discourage rebels from building their own fortifications across the river in the Charlestown Peninsula. I was going to say Pennsylvania. Don't know why. Don't ask me. The artillery on Copp's Hill fired on the Continental Army during the Battle of Bunker Hill. Well, sorta. It was actually a bit more distraction than destruction. At least at the Breeds Hill fortifications. There's so many hills here. Oh my goodness. Bunker Hill, Copp's Hill, Breeds Hill. In this one paragraph. The artillery fire on the town of Charleston was more effective. The resulting fires forced out Continental Army snipers and leveled the town. Interesting. John Pitcairn. In 1754, John Pitcairn was a young captain in the British Marine Corps. He fought in the French and Indian War, but I can't find much about his postings. Why does Sean sound like that? He's listed as being on the HMS Lancaster during the capture of Louisbourg, that's in Canada. No record of him being on the American side of the colonies, but it seems that he did some covert work as well. That would explain why am I talking like a Frenchman. Pitcairn was promoted to major in 1771. I'm gonna stop. And he gained a reputation for being well-liked by his subordinates and praised by his enemies. That's a difficult trick to pull off. Why do I sound... Oh my goodness. Maybe he had a lovely smile. Okay, that's enough, Daryl. You're getting too antsy. Okay, before we continue on with that, let's learn about Edward Braddock. Edward Bulldog Braddock was a major general placed in charge of British troops at the beginning of the French and Indian War, probably because he had a nickname like Bulldog. I mean, who wouldn't have a nickname like Bulldog with a last name like Braddock? Braddock is just such a badass name. Braddock was serving as the acting governor of Gibraltar when he received the command in North America. He was given control of 2 regiments of regulars and assigned to win back Fort... How am I supposed to pronounce that? Fort Duquesne? I'm going to go with Duquesne. From the French, known as the Braddock Expedition, as part of a larger attack on the French colonies on the continent. Braddock had been well liked as the governor in Gibraltar, but things had changed once he reached North America. He had been known for keeping strict order among his troops, but it seems that he went beyond into brutality. He gained a reputation for being quick-tempered and cruel. He also displayed a contempt for non-British soldiers that alienated the colony militia he was trying to recruit. So a cruel, racist bulldog then. They're my least favorite type of bulldog. I mean, you don't want to have a racist or cruel bulldog anyway. Okay, I'm going to stop with that. Braddock took a bullet to the chest during a battle in 1755. Rumor has it from one of his own soldiers, which is a job hazard when you're nasty to the people around you and they all have guns. Yep, that's fair enough. Sounds like the bulldog may have been put down. Ho-ho! Yeah! Christchurch. This is known today as Old North Church because it's the oldest church in the north end of Boston. But up to 1776, it would have been known by its official name, Christchurch, named after Jesus Christ, a former celebrity carpenter. This is where, on the night of Paul Revere's ride, 2 signal lanterns appeared to warn rebels on the opposite shore that the British regulars were on their way to seize weapons. The signal was Paul Revere's idea, but contrary to popular belief, the lamps weren't a signal sent to Revere. They were meant to warn lookouts on the opposite shore in case Revere was captured. This church was the natural choice of a signal flame. It was the highest steeple in Boston and easily seen from the other side of the river. Even better, the church was Anglican. The congregation was full of wealthy loyalists. Who would suspect the church sexton, Robert Newman, a friend of Revere's, of sneaking into the church at night to send secret messages? Well, the British would, actually. They captured Newman a few days later and questioned him. He put on a terrific show and managed to convince them he was innocent, and then fled town, which didn't really back up the whole innocent thing very well at all. I don't know what kind of accent that was, but I hope you enjoyed it. French and Indian War. This is one of many wars in the long-standing British and French rivalry. Well, You might call it a rivalry. I'd call it a battle of wits and an unarmed country. This particular war being over who would come out as the biggest colonial power. Of course, it wasn't enough that British and French fight one another. They convinced a number of North American indigenous nations to join the conflict as well, hence the name French and Indian War. The war started in the colonies, but it spread to Europe, where it was known as the 7 Years' War. Before you pointed out, yes, I know the dates add up to more than 7 years. The conflict started in 1754, but war wasn't officially declared until 1756. But well done for you spotting it, mathlete. I bet you were popular at school. George Washington was the honor of starting the actual fighting under orders, of course. Oh my gosh, can I read? He was sent to create a fort in disputed territory. While he was doing that, he crossed paths with a French patrol. Washington attacked the French retaliated. The British followed up by sending 2 full regiments of regulars to the fight, and so it began. The British fought a losing battle until 1758, when they got a new prime minister who decided funding the war effort was a priority, possibly because of the whole French thing. Maybe he ate a bad baguette once. With the added support, the British, along with the indigenous allies and colonial militia, I was going to say Matilla, I don't know why, began to gain ground slowly but surely. Eventually, the French were driven out of almost all of their territory north of the Caribbean, something we in British celebrate with a special holiday called Every Day All Year. So the British won, but they were left with huge war debts. They tried to pay these off with taxes levied from the colonists they defended from the French, who would have had them all eating onions and saying, "Oui, sir, non, sir," before you knew it. The colonists objected, leading up to a series of protests which were part of the unrest that led to the American Revolution. Talk about gratitude. Zut alors!
You must be right.
What is the Boston Neck? In the 18th century, the only land route into Boston was across a narrow strip of land called Boston Neck. One often talks about the heart of Africa, of course, or the bosom of Europe. How wonderful that Boston gets a neck. Fortifications were built across the neck to protect the city from land attack, I suppose a bit like a heavy necklace or a handsome neck brace. When the siege of Boston began in 1775, Governor Gage ordered that the fortifications be expanded and strengthened. They become known as Gage's Lines. Starting in the 19th century, land was added to Boston Neck, widening it to make room for the city to grow, and presumably to ease traffic on and off the island, since Boston is no longer in danger of attack from the countryside. Oh no, sad faces. Good Lord, Rebecca. With all the fixes and updates and improvements you supposedly put into this recent software revision, one would think you would have had the decency to include a British English dictionary in the spell checker. Some of us prefer to use proper language when corresponding. The database keeps trying to replace the letter S with Z in certain words, and it's declared war on the letter U as well. Realize becomes realize, and color becomes color. Wrong. It's all rather ethnocentric, if you ask me. Also, quite against the principle of Assassin Brotherhood. Last I checked, and here I thought we were all meant to be an exclusive bunch. Oh, Sean, you crazy Dutch.